Hi guys, it's Darkseid. Welcome to the Batchat Podcast.
What is up guys, it's your boy Batman Unboxed and welcome to the first Batchat Podcast of the year. For the first episode, I thought I would kick this off with an absolute bang, and I'd like to welcome two absolute legends, Ray Porter and Julian Jones, who are well known for their roles within the Zack Snyder's Justice League. Not only that, this is the first time that both Ray and Julian have both been on the podcast at the same time. Of course, Julian played the ancient Atlantean king and Ray played the ultimate villain, Darkseid. I feel extremely honoured to have you both on the podcast. How are you guys doing?
Well, better now after that introduction. Goodness.
Well, you'd be pleased to know that I've voice noted this introduction to my friends multiple times today to make sure I can get it spot on. And hopefully it landed perfectly after my many type outs.
And Julian, it is a privilege to virtually meet you. I know we worked on the same film, but we never worked at the same time. And so
it's lovely to meet you too via the joys of technology.
Exactly.
Once I eventually got there, yeah.
Well, you both absolutely smashed it. And as I say, thank you so much for joining the podcast. It really does mean a lot to give up your time to speak to Batman Unboxed. Which is really kind of you. So what I wanted to do first of all, before we get into the movies that you've worked on, some of the series that you guys have been involved in, is actually taking it back to the basics and understanding the upbringing, because a lot of my audience and people that watch my podcasts love the origin story about how you rose to the positions that you have earned and some of the amazing films that you both have been in. So if I can ask Julian, your rise to stardom, obviously being in some great films, Justice League being one of them, working alongside the amazing director, Zack Snyder. How did you get into acting in the first place? Because I did watch another podcast and it said that you were an apprentice electrician. Is that right?
Yeah. That's how I started my working life. When I was 16, I was an apprentice electrician. And then I won't go into the whole journey to become an actor because it's kind of long-winded. But no, I had no intention of being an actor when I was a young man. I worked manual jobs and left an apprenticeship, and then I was going to go in the military. That didn't quite work out, and then I did manual work. I became a gym instructor. I lived in London. Then I moved to America for a while, and I got family there and stuff, and mainly sort of California. And then I went back to London and then back to America. And when I was there, I was living in Los Angeles, and I was sharing an apartment with a cousin of mine. And he'd been a very successful model over in, Tokyo, Milan and all this for these designers. And he was trying to become an actor, and then I got into that kind of like mindset, I suppose. And I'd always been a big fan of films. I'd watched so many films, from childhood, but never once did I think of becoming an actor. I was too shy, and I was kind of introverted in that sense. And then I was I was watching a film one day. I think it might have been in the Bruin. The cinema down in Westwood, and I kind of thought, I think I could do this, some kind of like, I was a little bit, I think I could do this. And I phoned my father up and says, Dad, I'm going to come back to Wales. I'm going to be an actor. And he's like, oh my God, he said it in a different way, but because it's, this is a podcast, I won't elaborate. So yeah, and I've been reading this, Ray will probably remember Interview magazine, the Andy Warhol magazine.
Oh yeah.
And I read so many of those, and it was all about these actors, and it was quite a few sort of UK Irish actors that, they'd been to this place, RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and I genuinely thought that was the only place where you could train to be an actor in the UK. So that's the first time I acted was my RADA audition, and nobody taught me, So I was working in Harrods at the time in London, and I bought Richard III, the Laurence Olivier film, and because they told me that I had to prepare a classical piece and a modern piece, I had no idea what it meant, So that's what I did. I basically mimicked Olivier, and yeah, and I think the panel at RADA were kind of their kind of jaws dropped when I pretended to do the whole kind of now was the winter of our discontent made glorious sun. Oh my God. And I did this whole thing, and they were like, okay. And then they said to me, oh, how do you think that went? And I went, and I had a very broad North Walian accent, and I said, well, I think I remembered all the words. And this part of the panel went, well, it's not really about learning words, darling. It's about acting. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then obviously I didn't get in, but then I learned afterwards that there were other drama schools. So all was not lost. And then I applied for 3 others. And luckily in my last audition, the head of acting, Andrew Neil at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, must have seen something in me, some raw talent or whatever they call it. And he gave me a recall, and I got in and trained, for 3 years in drama school, and then became an actor. So I think if it wasn't for him, really, I don't know, So I mean, he sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but I have a lot to be grateful to him for, that he gave me that chance, Yeah. So that was my journey in a nutshell. Yeah.
Well. Incredible.
That's the best audition
Absolutely incredible
story I've ever heard.
But then
that's the best audition story I have ever heard.
Really?
I love it.
Oh God,
that's amazing.
When I think back, how naive I was, and but also sort of fearless as well. Because I had no, nobody telling me to do anything about that. It was like, well, yeah, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll. Yeah. And then, and also people are telling me, how are you going to be an actor? You've never done it before. And I says, trust me, I know I can do it. Trust me. And I'll do it. I'll do it. And then, and I did it. And yeah, but when I think back, my God, what they must have thought of me in that RADA audition. It's like, who's this? Oh God, yeah, there you are.
No, well, I absolutely love it, and as Ray said, it's probably the best story that I've heard on how you landed to be an actor. And looking at your scenes in the Justice League as you were whipping round that trident, you're an actor. It was amazing.
Oh yeah.
So when you were with your cousin, I know you mentioned that he was doing the modeling side. You didn't fancy going over to the modeling side and not the acting,
Nah. No. No. I do. Charlie, or Chuck as we call him, he did really well, and then another friend, one who I met through Charlie, was a friend of mine since then, Crispian Belfridge. His father was a very famous agent. Crispian and Charlie were very, close friends, and they modeled around the world and everything. But no, I was too self-conscious, I couldn't have done that. No. I like a pint too much.
Well, me and Ray were actually discussing before this about our enjoyment for pints. So it's funny that you mentioned that. It's definitely a British culture thing, and Welsh, that we all love a pint. And
tea, there you are.
Yeah.
Hey, nice.
So Ray, your story, how did you get to where you are now?
It's funny, it kind of parallels Julian's in interesting ways. I was 16 and putting roofs on houses in Indiana, doing general construction, all that. I wasn't smart enough to be an electrician.
And I'm a failed electrician.
I I used to envy those
Turned
guys,
actor,
man.
turned
I'd
actor.
be
So
like,
it's
you guys
good.
got it easy. I'm hanging off a roof. What are you doing? So yeah, I grew up in Indiana. And my parents, my mother was an actor. I was born in New York City, and before I had a word to say about it, they moved me to a small town in Indiana. So I grew up around theater people, and it was always kind of part of the scenery. But I was never going to do that, and I did construction and did a lot of physical work, and thought about what I'd like to do. And at one point, I fantasized about being a combat photographer, something, guy like on a stringer for whatever out in some war zone taking pictures. That seemed interesting. But I was never going to do theater. And I went and saw a production of a George Bernard Shaw play, of all things. And I decided I would like to give it a go. So I cobbled together an audition. Again, nobody helped me either. Julian, our stories are very similar. I rocked up with the final scene from John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, but like both characters, and just did it. And I was auditioning for the California Institute of the Arts, and the auditioner was like, "That's not what you're supposed to do." I was like, "Okay," and somehow I got in. So I went, and I was utterly skint through college. I shudder to think how much better an actor I'd be if I'd had food and sleep. But I did every play that I possibly could, did every student film that I possibly could, extracurricular, that sort of thing. And then I was dumped out into the wilds of LA in '89, and wasn't really sure what to do with myself. And got a call to go to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland for a season. So I told everybody I'd go up for 6 months. That was how long the contract was, and I'd be back. I was just going to go do this and, whatever. And I ended up staying up there. My last season with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival was 2008. And in the off season, I would come down to LA and I would do, little bits of TV and things like that I could kind of pick up. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of like, and I don't know, Julian, if you would commiserate, but there's this feeling when you're doing this, especially early on, you find yourself in a play or in a show or whatever, and you're like, this isn't actually work. I know what work is. It's very funny. And there's a difference, I think, with a lot of the actors who just kind of eased into it and never had to worry about rent or food or that kind of thing. They get to do this work. I always came from a place of I have to or I won't eat.
Survival.
Well, very much so, and it's something that people tell me I'm good at, so I'm going to do this. Because I saw what roofing did to guys, who were in their 50s when I was a teenager. I was like, I can't do that. I'm not going to. Yeah, and it's been. I'm very grateful, very humble all the time that I've had the work that I've had, that I continue to do this work, and I have an infinite amount of respect. But like you and I were talking, Joe, before this thing started about, remember when I said, if you look back and you think about, who helped you get there, and that list gets bigger and bigger the longer you are in this business. And certainly for me, there's one or two people who were absolutely pivotal I mean, for heaven's sakes, the woman that showed up with that ragged audition at Cal Arts, who somehow saw something and said, okay, we'll take you on. I mean, if that hadn't happened, I don't know where I'd be, but I bet I'd have a hammer in my hand.
And you'd have some knees that hurt, some scrapes down your arms, and
lifelong injuries. Instead of the lifelong injuries you get doing theater, which they don't tell you is no joke.
Yeah.
You meet a theater actor and they'll show you scars.
Yeah, I bet. And obviously before this as well, and I mentioned actually something that I wanted you to mention back to the audience is about the words of advice and some words of wisdom. In terms of obviously some of the best advice that you've got and some motivation, obviously you're very self-motivated, and obviously, hunger, tiredness, no sleep was a big driver for you to make sure that you weren't doing roofs and that you
the desire
succeeded.
was greater. The desire was greater than hunger and tiredness and all that other stuff. The desire to do this work was, and like Julian, it's like, don't tell me I can't. I'm going to.
If somebody tells you I think there are two kinds of people, really, generalizing, but if somebody tells you you can't do something, you either believe them or you don't believe them. It's kind of like that you believe yourself,
Yeah.
because you have to have that. Unless you have that, then you won't get on, because
Absolutely.
there'll be other people who will. Such a competitive industry, more so now than it ever has been. I know there are many more outlets now, which is streaming services and the like, but the amount of actors out there now is incredible. I think the most it's ever been,
Yeah.
and I think the industry has changed considerably
Yeah, very much so.
in my 30 plus years of doing it. It really has. It doesn't get any easier. Um, you become more experienced and more confident and everything like that, but the competition is as fierce as ever.
Without question. Without question. Yeah.
Unless you have that drive, then you're not
That's
going
the thing they don't talk about too, is that when you get a little bit of white in your beard, you have to have even more drive,
Yeah.
because
It's true.
yeah,
As you get older, you kind of think, when you're in your 30s, whatever, oh, this is hard, oh, this is blah, blah. And by the time I get to my 50s, I'm gonna be doing this and doing that, and it's like, yeah, in an ideal world, yes, yeah, but that happens to a handful of people who are lucky, and I think luck is a massive element in this industry. It really is. If you're lucky, if the right part, the right time, whatever, that it's picked up or whatever. There are so many factors riding towards success. What
yeah,
people call success. I think if you continue to work, whether it be sporadic or you know, if you're still working as an actor, then you are successful. In my
without question. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And your perspectives change. I think, when you're 19 or 20, I'm going to be a star, and that's, the goal.
Mhm.
Suddenly, you've worked and you've sustained yourself. And if you look around and realize the lights are on in my house and I've got food in my refrigerator because of acting,
Yep. Yeah,
that is success. You beat the odds.
absolutely, absolutely. It's and you kind of have to remind yourself of that. Um, and it's only really when you talk to other actors, on their experiences, that you kind of think, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. You know, whatever, if you audition and you don't get it, and then another audition, and then we always take things, like, oh, what have I done? Is it me? Is it this? It's like,
Yeah,
sometimes, but very rarely is it you. It,
correct.
it's kind of, we're hard on ourselves, aren't we? We are.
We are.
We're hard
That's
on.
that's one of the biggest tricks to learn in this, is to try to not be.
I
You
don't know.
know?
Yeah, and I think that as I have got older, I do kind of, I'm more philosophical about it now.
Yeah.
I ride that kind of disappointment wave, for a much shorter time than I used to. It's like,
Because before we did this, I mean, I looked you up, I looked up your Wikipedia, and I'm like reading your resume. I'm like, God, he's gotten to do the coolest stuff. I wish I could have done that. You always think that with other actors, like, oh, I wish I could be doing that.
yeah,
You've got an impressive career.
yeah, but it's also, it's like, now I've got, I've done, I just didn't finished doing a panto, right?
Excellent.
So,
I love that.
but before that, right, I did my first stage play for 18 years, right?
Wow.
And for 10 years, from like 97 to 2007, theatre work was the mainstay of my work,
Yeah.
without doubt, with the odd TV here and there, whatever, right? But it was mainly theatre, and that's where I learnt the most I've ever learnt, really. I got to work with he was like my mentor, a gentleman called Terry Hans, who used to be the artistic director of the Royal Shakespeare Company. He started the Everyman Theatre in Liverpool, and him, Trevor Nunn, and all that. They're all kind of in the same age bracket, and so he took me on to be part of a rep company in '97. I was in my late 20s and started as players cast, playing one of the horses in Equus.
Yeah.
And worked hard and he saw that, and then I would start getting bigger parts and then leads. I played the Crucible, I played Proctor, the Parking in the Cherry Orchard, and I worked with.
I played Danforth in the Crucible.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Oh,
we should have done that together. That would have been fun.
oh no, please don't. No more. What a fantastic play. But yeah, so I kind of, and then I got offered this play in the summer, a new play at Theatre Clwyd, where I'd basically started my theatre career, and I was like, God, people tell you, don't you, as an actor, God, 18 years you haven't done a play, okay, I did a couple of pantos, but it's a completely different genre. So I was nervous, and I was thinking, right, if I don't do this now, I might not ever get back on stage because of that whole thing because it's such a different discipline. And so I did it. And then I went straight then to doing the panto, which was, completely different.
That's bonkers, though.
And then, but yeah, I kind of spun this out a bit, but yeah. So I'm home now. I haven't really been home for the best part of 4 months. So I had Christmas Day off from the panto, and now I'm home. But then what I also do, I kind of, because I started my working life as a manual worker, I work for my friend's concrete company.
Oh, fantastic.
So whenever, I'm never idle. I'm never kind of just waiting for the phone to ring. I said, right, okay, I need to bring money in. Okay. So I'm lucky that my friend, who is also my boss, he has that kind of understanding with me that he can allow me to go away and do my acting and stops. And if I need to go back, then I go back and do, I work on the concrete.
Well, it's the craft, really, isn't it? I mean, I was away from the theater for a very, very long time, and ended up going to do a play called Stones in His Pockets at a small theater in Oregon for no money. Stones in His Pockets, Irish play.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Comes to Ireland. There's 14 characters played by 2 actors.
Yeah.
So, talk about like, oh God, I don't know if I can still do this. It's like really taking the bull by the horns on it. I got away with it, and that went well. And I just finished. I went back after a year and did Waiting for Godot, which I don't recommend any actor do, because oh my God. But it's about the craft, and it was for no money. Not a lot of people saw it, but it was about the doing it, and that enriches what happens when you do get stood up in front of a camera, or when I know this is your podcast, Joe, but we're just sat here having a conversation.
Honestly, I'm thinking I might crack open a nice pint, a nice beer or something.
I'm so sorry.
Listen to words of wisdom being flung around, please continue to discuss.
You're absolutely right. I feel like I'm in the pub.
I know, me too.
I was literally about to get my headphones off and go to the toilet.
Oh God.
No, but I've been loving it. But no, we'll all meet up for a pint, definitely, and I'm sure that there's lots to talk about. But obviously, look, great words of wisdom there from the both of you. How do you even come about these roles? So obviously, I know you some people get agents, maybe find them online. I don't know the process. Do you mind talking me through how you first of all get the auditions to then get the callbacks and the parts?
I know in LA, I went to a couple of meetings with a couple of agents, and it did not go particularly well. And then an agent happened to be in Oregon and saw me doing my stuff, in a Shakespeare play, and approached me. And then they were representing me, and I started booking TV shows and and movies and that kind of thing. Then that agent died. I hooked up with another agent, and that was great for a time. And then something very bad happened with their business, and so I was kind of orphaned and floating around a little bit. And weirdly, like for Justice League, the way that I got Darkseid was I also narrate audiobooks. That's been kind of the bread and butter, because I don't have the upper body strength to do concrete. So I've been narrating.
I need a couple of weeks back on the tools to get to that standard again.
So I do audiobooks, and that's been great because I work from home. But I at the time was married to a person who was doing costume work for Zack Snyder, and I knew Zack socially, just and he's a wonderful guy. And he found out that I narrate audiobooks, and he called me in because he basically said, I like to hear the script rather than read it. And so I would go in and I would read the entire screenplay to him and to the writer and writers, and did that for a long time. If there were rewrites, that kind of thing, adjustments that were made, I would go in and read it. It was at the Leavesden Studios, down in Watford. And literally one day he handed me this CGI image of this thing. He said, what do you think this guy would sound like? And just on the fly, I banged out this voice. And then it was 2 weeks later, somebody else entirely came and said, oh, by the way, you're playing Darkseid.
Wow.
And that was how I got that part. So sometimes an agent is marvelous, but most of the time I was helping a friend. I regarded Zack as a friend, and he wanted my help. And so I went to help him. I didn't have an angle on it. It wasn't, ooh, I hope I get a part out of this. It was just assisting somebody who asked.
Mm.
And I ended up getting to play this part, and it kind of opened up a lot of things, and that was marvelous.
Well,
it's at the end of the day, I really do believe it's about personhood more than anything else.
Absolutely. So there was no particular callback. It was more of a,
no, there wasn't.
Your Darkseid, and
my
we're starting on set.
Yeah, my audition literally was the director going, what do you think he'd sound like? And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know, something, when, and he was like, cool. I was like, cool, see you later. And 2 weeks later, somebody else went, oh yeah, by the way, and Warner Brothers said, no, not him, because we don't know who he is. And Zack said, no, it's him.
Yeah.
And suddenly there I was doing it. Cut to me on a soundstage wearing a black Lycra suit, standing next to Kieran Hines. And I said, we both look like the HR department for ninjas. So I mean, all that stuff was all obviously CGI'd. So we did our scenes wearing headgear with lights on our faces, and they animated everything. But yeah,
it's amazing. One thing that I am fascinated to know is that you're a voice actor, and when you're trying to do these scenes that aren't in front of you, in front of people that aren't actually there, how do you go about that process? And what's going through your mind? How does that work? Obviously, you're speaking in front of the microphone. You're not, unless Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot are there in front of you. How does that work, and how do you get into that mindset of?
Sometimes on a film set, the other actor will be there. I shot the Darkseid Steppenwolf scene. I was standing up on a ladder while Kieran was down on the ground. We couldn't really see each other well because like I said, we had headgear with cameras and these bright lights in our eyes, but he was at least there. Sometimes you're acting to a tennis ball. Sometimes you're acting to a green panel and there isn't anybody there. Mm. And, actors are great at creating entire universes and sharing them. And so it isn't necessary that all of those things be in place for you to see them. We take the text, we make it real and share that realness. Which sounds very much like I need to light some joss sticks and meditate now, but it honestly, it's the imagination. It's filling that space. I forget who it was that said all you need is a box and an attitude, and you're telling a story. And it truly is. You fill in and make real the things that aren't even necessarily there for people. So through your voice, through your body, through acting, you're creating a realm for the listener or the viewer or the audience to inhabit, to live in.
And one of the skills I was going to say about the skill set that you have is about looking at a picture of a character and then finding that voice that maybe you didn't know you had until you looked at it
Right.
and thought, oh, I think Darkseid's going to sound like this.
And that's the thing, is you don't question it. It's just like, I mean, he literally, it was 10 seconds. What do you think he'd sound like? And I did something, and then there you go. But I didn't expect anything out of it. It was just like, oh, let me based on the visual impetus or input I have here, this is what he sounds like, you know.
Yeah. Did you know much about the DC universe before stepping into the Justice League?
All. That was the worst thing, was when the Snyder Cut came out, and I would start getting asked all these questions. I mean, I respect comic books and respect people who love them. It was never really my thing. All I knew was the backstory that I had in the script, and as an actor, I'm playing that. Doing a Shakespeare character was a little like that, where you've got 500 years behind you of other actors playing these roles and these like definitive things. And if you think about what they did, you're screwed. I've always adopted the attitude. It sounds arrogant. It really isn't, but I've always adopted the attitude of the first time these words get said is when I say them. The first time that this event happens between these people in this scene is when it happens. Because if I'm thinking about all of that other weight, I'm not going to actually get the job done.
You can't go into a job with baggage and
at all,
with expectation and anything like that. You just have to make it your own. And like you say, these are the first time these people have heard what I've said. So yeah,
precisely.
It has to be that. It has to be that.
It has to be.
Otherwise, you compromise and you try and please people, and you can't do that.
And you get scared. You get, it's like, ooh, I'm putting a nail in a wall in a grade 2 listed house. How dare I?
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm hanging a picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you say that, because obviously being big into Batman myself, voice actors like Kevin Conroy, for example,
I had the privilege of meeting him at a Comic-Con in Abu Dhabi. He was an absolute gentleman.
He's one person that out of everybody, other than you two, of course, I would love to have on the podcast. I've been very fortunate to have an autograph signed by him that I purchased at an extortionate price, but it's worth it for the collection. But he's another tremendous voice actor that a lot of other people try to mirror or compare themselves to. But when you get the role of Batman, you need to put on your own perception on how you think the character should play. So when you mentioned about the things coming out of your mouth, you say it how you feel like you want to say it.
Exactly. I mean,
try and mirror.
Ben Affleck is not going to get up and do Batman the way the last three did. He's got to do his own thing. Otherwise, he's dead in the water, or it's an homage and it's not him bringing his work, and that's true for anybody. You just have to, it's your job. It is your turn to play this part. So you better damn well play it.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of Darkseids who come. Sorry, my eye is like. There's a lot of Darkseids who I had to follow in the footsteps of some pretty impressive actors, and I couldn't think about that, or I never would have done my job.
Well, you did a fantastic
Thank you.
portrayal of Darkseid. In fact, I only recently rewatched the Justice League, and your opening first dialogue scene that you mentioned was, I have turned 100,000 worlds to dust, looking for the anti-life, looking for those who rob me of my glory. I will stride across their bones and bask in the glow of anti-life, and all of existence shall be mine. So powerful.
Well, it was wonderful. And, I'm glad that I had done some Shakespeare to be able to go that huge bombast. I mean, that dialogue is not exactly, I went down to the corner shop and purchased a packet of fags. I mean, it's auspicious,
It's epic. It's epic.
It is epic. And it's again, drawing, falling back on Shakespeare, it's like, it's that kind of thing, right? It's vast, it's huge, it's high drama. I mean, you've had experience in the Game of Thrones universe, it calls on you to like, this is big stuff.
Yeah. I definitely think that and also going back to what you said before about, like I think as a theatre actor, then I really enjoy doing all that kind of green screen stuff
Mhm.
because it is like being on a stage.
It is very much so.
It's
Yeah.
it's like, we have to use our imagination, that fourth wall and everything like that. We have to picture this is happening, and like you
Yeah.
mentioned George and Lenny there. When when George is going, you see it, Lenny, you see it,
Yeah.
and all that in the end, that finale of Mice and Men and everything like, and you're that actor kind of like really seeing it, really seeing it. So when you have like a green screen or a ball up there that you have to imagine that this is
Mhm.
happening, and you have that imagination and skill set as a theater actor, so it doesn't become daunting.
Truly.
Oh, there's nothing there. What am I supposed to do?
Well, Shakespeare himself spoke to this in Henry V, the prologue. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. I mean, if only we had armies and yada, yada, yada. We
Yeah.
don't. You're going to have to imagine this castle. And when I show you 6 actors, you have to imagine an army. Ready? Let's go. I mean, it's been there always. That's the job,
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. And I think that that was part of the enjoyment of doing it because I felt comfortable,
Yeah.
kind of in this imaginary world, um,
Yeah.
this kind of epic world, and but I definitely think that having done theatre was a bonus,
It
because
always is. I really do think it always is. It's good nutrition and
um,
great tools for an actor.
Mm.
absolutely.
Well, someone not in the acting space, if I wanted to dip my toe in that, I'll start at theatre and then move over to the acting after.
So,
So, Julian, obviously, one thing that I wanted to talk about was your amazing opening scenes within the Justice League. Obviously, you had some great combat moves. How did you gear yourself up to do some of those amazing acrobatics? Obviously, I know that there are some CGIs involved. What was that like for you? Were you on rope strings, green screens? How did that all work out?
No, there was none of that in a way. It was green screen, and there was we were on the stages and everything like that. I did have some fight training for it. I can remember like getting the part. I think what Zach did, I can't swear on this, but I did speak to another actor who's in the film as well, and we were kind of given this monologue to do. And I remember doing a self tape, right, in a hotel in Cardiff at the time. I was filming something, and I had no one to read with me, so I basically had to imagine, I had to get this tape in pretty quick. So I had to imagine the other person there talking to me, and it was kind of, it was, quite theatrical, strong dialogue and everything like this. And then I think he must have got a few actors to do the same, and then looked at the where those actors would fit in his jigsaw, right? So you weren't necessarily auditioning for a specific part. If he thought that you had a presence, if you like, a strength or whatever, then they would fit in this part. I think that's how he did it. I can't swear on that, but I think so, going by what I heard from other actors. So then I can remember going for my first fitting to Leavesden to Warner Brothers Studios, and I kind of, everything is so kind of top secret. That world is so, because of, I can understand it's the same with the Game of Thrones universe and everything, because if something is leaked out, it spoils it for everyone. So they're very kind of protective. So I can remember having my first fitting and everything because I had this amazing costume, right? But it had to be developed, because they didn't have one. Jason Momoa had his own look for it. They had to find a look for me. And so they were measuring me and stuff like this. And then they says, "Oh, we need to try a cape on you," right? and they didn't. They made a cape for me in the end, but then they went and got Henry Cavill's cape for me to try on. So I had this kind of bodysuit and stuff like this, which was, and I can remember seeing Ben Affleck's costume there and stuff in in all these rooms, and I got to try the Batman, the Superman's cape on my kind of prototype King of Atlantis thing. And then you kind of get oh, you're back in tomorrow. We'll put you up in a hotel. You're going to have some a stunt assessment and stuff like this. And then that happened, and then they put us in the gym then in Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers, they have this huge gym. It's incredible, right? And the main trainer there is a guy called Mark Twight, who is fantastic, right? So he invented the whole 300 thing, the 300 workout, and he's the guy that got the actors in incredible shape for 300. So we were given like a fitness assessment, right? So we had to go into the gym, and they kind of gave us an assessment of, you had to do all this kind of different. It was kind of a CrossFit kind of thing, and then I really enjoyed that because I like the physical side of the stuff, and then I asked them then, oh, do you know if I'm doing this, right? Do you think that I can, kind of take this seriously and I'll commit to this. So then I got to train, and I spent, like 6 weeks on the actual job. They were like, you'd be there for 4 days, then you'd be back for, a couple of days next week. And then, I probably ended up actual filming, I don't know, 5 or 6 days in 6 weeks. But the rest of it, I was in the gym training. I got the fittest I've ever been in my life. I got to train with the Amazons, and they were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. So, Jason Momoa would be there in the morning. And then Ray Fisher, who I became very close with, who's a lovely guy, right?
Great guy. He's a friend. He's a good dude.
What a lovely man he is.
Yeah, he's aces. Yeah, I love him.
Oh, and Ezra was there and stuff.
Yeah.
And you kind of it was a really, and Zach would train in the mornings. He would come in and train, early. So it was a really lovely kind of feeling to be part of it, and Brooke Hens was there, who's like, she's like champion CrossFit, and then a friend of mine, we're still friends, Angharad Harry, she played one of the Amazons with Brooke and stuff, and it was amazing. And we stayed in the Sockwell House in St Albans, and it really was an amazing 6 weeks of my life. And Zach was just an absolute gentleman, and doing those kind of scenes, I look forward to it. It's kind of, I don't actually have any dialogue in the film. It was like, for somebody who's done a lot of theatre, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because I just felt like, that in that part, I just needed to kind of have a presence, and kind of like believability, and I really enjoyed it, and especially because when the first the theatrical cut come out, all of that was gone. All the
Same
stuff,
here, man.
all of that,
Here.
all of that stuff. I remember going to Leicester Square, and I took my was it my two sons or one of them, and my nieces came as well, and they were, and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, so all that stuff we shot is not in the film.
Yeah.
Okay.
You was saying it's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Tell me about it.
It's not here. So, I mean, the first release, I'm not sure. I mean, the Snyder Cut version is incredible. 4 hours of amazing content, but that's the one.
Julian's point, the being on a Zack Snyder set is joyful.
Yeah.
I got to work with him again on Rebel Moon, and just being on the set, everybody, and it's him. It's both the Snyders, and it instills such joy working with them. But yeah, I definitely feel you, Julian. I mean, I was in that movie, and then I wasn't at all.
Okay.
And honestly, if I submit, if it wasn't for that first theatrical release and the fans getting angry about it, I would never have been seen as Darkseid. So that when finally because I'd been keeping silent this whole time, and when Zack finally announced, it was on a podcast, I think, or a watch party of Man of Steel, and then he brought Henry Cavill in, and then he took questions, and somebody said, "Are they going to release the Snyder Cut?" And that was when he announced it. And 10 minutes later, the podcast was over, and I texted him immediately and was like, "Can I finally come out of the closet as Darkseid?" And he went, "Yes." I was like, "Great," because I'd been very quiet about it up to that point, you know?
Absolutely.
It was crazy. My arc with that was I did some work on it, and then I did mocap about a month later, and then sometime later I did face capture, and then later did more vocal pieces, and then years later at my home studio recorded some of the final lines of Darkseid in that. And when I watched the movie, I was like, there's 5 years between that sentence and this one in my final monologue. So mine was not, I didn't do like 6 weeks, because I certainly didn't go to the gym, but I didn't I didn't do, mine was like some work and then nothing, and then I would be back at work and then nothing, and then obviously years later doing the final touches on the Snyder Cut. So it's this very long, strange arc, But I did go to a fitting one day when the Amazons were in there, and boy, did I feel shamed. My goodness.
No, honestly, it was like, it was such a lovely job. Honestly, I do think back on it with such fond memories. It was like, it's you just buy into it, and the whole thing with it felt like a team, a big team,
Exactly right.
You're lucky to be part of this team.
Absolutely.
And then you want to do your best for that team.
Yep.
At every given opportunity, and we had this amazing fight coordinator, right? Called Eunice Huthart, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember Eunice?
Yeah, I sure do.
So Eunice, right, is a backstory for UK. So Eunice had been a competitor on the UK version of Gladiators.
Oh, okay.
Back in, it would have been the 90s, right? And she won, right? She won, the Gladiators, right? And she is one tough cookie. She is one tough cookie. But they invited her back to become a gladiator. She was that good, okay? And then I didn't know anything about her afterwards. The show finished and everything like that. But anyway, she went on to do movies. And I think she became Angelina Jolie's stunt double.
Okay.
Right. So, and she, she kept on working and becoming, she climbed the ladder and did really well, becoming a fight coordinator. So she's kind of running the show as regards fights, right? And she's a Scouser, right? She's from Liverpool.
Oh, fabulous.
Right. So it was brilliant, because it's like you're on this big sound stage, right? Okay, let's get the wind machines going. Massive wind machines and everything. And all right, and you've got, I don't know, 30, 40 people on the stage, and all these different fights going on and everything like that, right? And she's going 3, 2, 1, go. It was honestly, it was brilliant, right? I just felt like it was so exciting to be a part of that, And,
he brought the same trainer over to Rebel Moon, and I'm sitting on the set with Charlie Hunnam and a couple of the other guys who were like deep into the diet they had to be on and the training and all of that. And I'm standing there with a sandwich I'd just gotten from craft services, and it was like sitting among feral dogs. These guys have been surviving on carrots and air for months. I'm enjoying my sandwich. And I looked and went, either be CGI or a really nasty character, dude, and you'll be fine. Nobody wants me to be pretty.
Oh,
Perfect.
God.
Oh god,
Well,
that is
no,
hilarious.
well, yeah, because I remember Jason Momoa had his own little craft services, and
Yeah,
he would have this whole thing planned out for him.
yeah.
That's what he had to eat. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but no, I loved it. I loved it. It was, and I was so lucky because I'd worked, a few years prior to that. I I was very privileged. I got to work with Clint Eastwood for 3 months, and who was just lovely. He just a lovely gentleman, and then I got to work with Catherine Bigelow a few years after, who was lovely, and then I got to work with Zack Snyder, who's lovely, and it's like I felt so privileged to have worked with three amazing directors, but also really genuine, lovely people.
I have found more and more that the best people are usually just the best at what they do. I did a production of Henry IV in LA with Tom Hanks,
Oh yes.
and I had known him a bit before because I did a play with his wife, and we share a birthday and are kind of nerdy about much the same things. But I mean, anytime anybody asks me, "Is Tom Hanks as nice as he seems?" It's like 10 times nicer.
Mm.
He's just a genuinely kind person, and you find the best, most skilled, most amazing people in this business. 9 times out of 10 are some of the best people.
Yeah, you're right because they don't have anything to prove.
No,
It's like they're not insecure. They don't have agendas. They just want the best for you.
yep,
And you feel that from their presence, the way they talk to you and everything like that. They're lovely. They're lovely people.
yeah.
Um, but no, yeah, I'd love to work with Zach again. I really would.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Um,
on the topic of Zach, there's a lot of in the DC space, a lot of hope for his return, and a post that absolutely made me laugh, Ray, was your recent
Oh,
"Who Does It
yeah.
Better,"
I did that. I
and
did.
that's ended up on
I,
multiple
I didn't
forums.
expect it to explode the way it did. We were sitting in a natural rock formation in Wiltshire, and my partner was like, "Oh, do the Darkseid pose," and so I did, and I thought it would just be funny to post this thing,
Yeah,
and my inbox was filled with like, "Does this mean?" It's like, no, I was just being an idiot, just being an idiot, you know. But the fans really still
love it.
are loving it, and they're keeping the flame lit, and go for it. Never say never. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. It would be amazing to see Zach's return.
No,
I
I would work.
actually,
I would work for Zack Snyder under absolutely any circumstances.
yeah,
He is the best.
yeah.
Such a good guy.
Yeah, so well, it's amazing to hear your both hands-on experience with him. Obviously, James Gunn's new takeover. I did a Q&A session with him mid last year on his new Superman movie, and again, nice,
Absolutely.
absolutely delightful human being, and he's got his own vision on what
Yes, and
it's
fair
going to
play to
be,
him.
and so did Zach.
He,
And
he's marvelous. He's so great. When his was coming out, and I saw a lot of social media railing against him because it wasn't Zack. It's like, what are you doing? Don't do that. He gets to have his turn with this,
yeah,
and it should be celebrated. You get more Superman. What are you complaining about?
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
But it's amazing. Yeah, as I say, they're both lovely. But one obviously, I know you mentioned Julian, obviously about your role in Zack Snyder's Justice League not having any dialogue, but was a lot about around the acting involved. Obviously, you two actually did come against each other in one of the scenes.
Yes, I believe
What?
I thrust a trident through you or something. Sorry.
Yes, that is exactly right. And that led me to my next question. There's a lot of grunts and groans that come from Darkseid. Was
Yeah.
that you, or was that
Yes.
edited in from the?
No, that was one recording session where for about an hour I was making variations of growling uh, because it's such a glamorous job. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that was all. That was me.
yeah. Because I noted, I think it was about 2 hours in, was when your first opening dialogue
Yeah.
was said after Steppenwolf commanded in, and yeah. before that, every time your character was introduced, it was like a
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. In
uh.
fact, they had me do the leap and then the swinging of the thing,
Yeah,
it spooks us in the anti-life. And so, I got to have that superhero landing in a movie.
yeah,
All of the rest of it was handled by the great physical stuntman who did all of the other like mocap work on that stuff. But yeah,
yeah. Did you ever find yourself halfway through doing it and thinking, how did I end up here? When you're going into the mic,
constantly. I mean, I went into Warner Brothers Soundhouse in London. We were going to do a recording session, and I got into the booth like you do, and got my headphones on like you do, and I just started kind of making noises to get sort of vocally there for Darkseid. So I did. I don't even know if I could recreate it now, but I just basically went like this like low growl.
yeah,
Heard all these people, and they're like, "Oh!" And it was all the Warner Brothers execs in Burbank listening in, and nobody had told me that.
yeah.
I was like, I'm glad I didn't say anything untoward.
Yeah, well, it come out amazing in the film and looks great. What was your best and most favorite on-screen moment? Well, I say on-screen. What was your best part of dialogue when watching it back? What did you enjoy most from
Well,
Darkseid?
I really liked the scene with Steppenwolf with Kieran, mostly because we got to do that together, and also with Peter Guinness, who was Desaad. They're both such lovely, lovely guys, and Kieran and I had shared a couple of pints the night before at the hotel in Burbank, before we went in and worked, and so that first when he's like, I found it, and that oh Steppenwolf, that whole it's like
Yeah,
you Hillock. There was so much that was informed from not just this is in the script or whatever, but it was we were playing, which is what you want with actors. We were playing. I loved that speech for a lot of reasons. I kind of quoted a friend's line delivery in several Shakespeare plays we'd been in on I will stride across their bones. It just came to me that that's how my friend would have done it. And so that I kind of layered that in. But I mean, I really liked all of the scenes I had, all of the interactions I had, because I got to work with Peter Guinness. I got to work with Kieran Hines,
yeah,
and I loved that. Even in spite of we're wearing lycra, I'm standing on a ladder, I've got a light in my face, I can't see you. We were still playing. Um, and again, it's a Zack Snyder set, so the joy, is just evident all the way through.
yeah,
So for me, it was all fun. And frankly, by the time it got seen, because I had been through such a roller coaster, both personally and professionally with that movie, that when it did finally come out, I got to see it in IMAX. Um, it was like, oh God, finally. For me, the most significant moment, period. They had a reunion or a showing of it at Universal City in LA, and all the fans came to see the movie. And I'm sat in the movie, and all these fans are there who had been wanting to see it on the big screen for such a long time. And they were so excited and they were so happy. And I was loving that. And Darkseid made his first appearance on screen, and they started to applaud. And I cried a little, honestly, because of the journey to get there, but also just how much these people loved it. And they didn't have to be nice to me. I'm nobody, but they welcomed me in, and it is a big emotional, huge heart event for me, truly.
I mean, I feel like crying just hearing the story. So
Yeah.
actually playing the character and then hearing the audience, extremely touching. But obviously, the both of you, including Julian, you've played in some great shows, House of Dragon, The Wheel of Time, Stella. You know, for the both of you, has there ever been a point in your career where you've thought, I've made it, or how did I get here? Or obviously, you're both extremely humble, and I know that by talking to you both. But at what point, and may have been the Justice League, but where in your career did you think I feel like I've done myself proud and made it to a point?
I don't ever kind of think in those terms, to be honest with you, right? Because
Yep.
you do have pinch me moments, right? You do kind of think, this is amazing, right? This is amazing. I think we kind of, if you've done a day's filming, and then you go back to your hotel and then you go for a beer or something afterwards. It's those times that you think, wow,
Yeah.
I've never thought, oh, I've made it or nothing like that. It's because it's not about that. It's kind of like you just want to keep working as an actor.
Hmm.
Or you never rest on your laurels. You kind of you don't think that's it now. That's it. I've made it. You never think like that. It's
Hmm.
always about the next job. But there are times that you kind of do have those pinch me moments. When you get to work with such talented people as Zack Snyder. Who are so visionary and um, and inspiring, and they're kind of geniuses in their own world. You know what I mean? It's like when you have the chance to be in their company and to work with them. Um, yeah, yeah, you feel privileged. You do feel privileged, and you kind of think, wow, yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I did okay. I did okay.
I completely 100% concur with what you said. Absolutely right. Yeah. I had a guy actually at my local here. He'd seen me, I guess, during the day or something. He saw me on Sons of Anarchy. My first thought is great, residual check. Uh, but he started asking me about stuff. And he's like, oh, he didn't know. He's not an actor. He's like, oh, when you get your big break. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. I've had my big break about 6 times. It isn't about that. It's about the work and collecting great stories to share down the pub of like, oh, I did this in this scene or whatever. But it's the craft of it.
It
It's
is
not.
absolutely, yeah. You get, you know, you do get those things exactly what you're saying. It says, oh, well, when you get your break, and I was like, listen, I'm 57,
Yeah.
and like I said, I've had a few breaks.
Yeah. I'm very, yeah, I feel very fortunate myself, but yeah.
Doing okay. I'm doing okay, and you know what I mean. It's not about that, It's kind of like it's to keep working, it's to keep doing the work, and that's it. It's
Exactly right.
yeah. I'm lucky. I was like, I'm in a new series which starts or the end of this month called Under Salt Marsh, and I got to work with Kelly Riley, who plays Beth. She's become an icon in America in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Um, so we did the series last year, and that was that. It was, working with Kelly and stuff like that. Who's just this amazing actress. So that for me, that was kind of like yeah, and that was, and I the director who was so lovely, Claire, and she was so collaborative, and you come in with an idea and stuff like that, and she would go with it, and when you kind of have those opportunities that people listen and take on board, whether it's right or wrong, whatever, you collaborate. That's what's so lovely,
Yeah.
is that I was listening to something to Tom Hanks actually said it the other day. Something came up on social media. He said, the best advice I've ever had was, turn up on time, know the text, and have an idea.
Yep.
And it's like, well, yeah, that's it.
That's the job.
That's it. It's like be disciplined, be brave, be disciplined, be brave, and kind of just have an idea, just have some kind of, don't just be a puppet, don't expect somebody to say, well, can you do this or can you do that? Offer things, always offer things.
Yeah.
Well, they might be right, they might be wrong, but at least have the guts to offer something.
Absolutely.
God, I've come away from this podcast feeling extremely motivated and humbled to listen to.
Well, Julian and I will be appearing at various venues around the country giving motivational speaking.
Absolutely.
And concrete and roofing tips to happen after.
Yeah, well, I'll be there.
They have to pay for the
Yeah, well, I'll be there. But obviously, look, guys, you got families to get back to, and I've taken up a lot of your time. I would pinch myself if I didn't ask this. Ray, would
Yes.
you please do me the honor of doing a Darkseid voice impression? And I'd like you to say, "Hi, guys, it's Darkseid here, and welcome to the Batchat Podcast."
Oh God, let's see if I can do it. I got to get right up on the mic.
Hi, guys. It's Darkseid. Welcome to the Batchat Podcast. He's well fit.
Is that all right?
Oh, that is awesome! Oh, thank you so much, Ray, and thank you so much, Julian, for donating your time to speak with me.
Julian, what an absolute privilege to meet you. And I really hope that the stars align and we can be sat across from each other with a glass in our hands at some point.
Absolutely. We have to do it. We have to go to some cons or something like that together.
Oh, I'd love that, man. That'd be amazing.
You both should. There's some great ones coming up, and I know they're always looking.
Well, hopefully, as I said, the stars align. Maybe it's star management will get us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, yeah, Matt, I definitely will know we'll be able to hook that up for sure. But guys, I'll let you get back to your Monday evenings with the family. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to hopefully catching up with you both in the near future.
Well done, Joe. Thank you, man.
No worries. All the best. Thank you so much to you both. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Bye.